And a very good evening to you, and welcome to today's edition of Politics 101. David Hinds here, of course, on Thursday evening in Guyana, um, coming to you from Buxton on the east coast of Demerara, um, uh, continuing the full um, news week. Lots happening, of course. We've been talking all week about the news as I was coming in to do the program. A couple of young men sitting on the corner stopped me. And they say, Dr. Hinds, we want we want to have an we want to have an audience with the vice president. Can you put us on to Mr. Sue? Oh boy. And as I drove down a little further, one of my cousins, stopped me and said, Buzz, I need an audience with Mr. Sue. I tell you, sometimes we feel that ordinary people are not hooked into what's happening. Um, but they are really into the news and really into what's happening. Uh, this must be extremely damaging for the PPP, even for bareface, a bareface government like the PPP. Um, I am telling you, it's quite embarrassing. Please share the link. Please share the link. Welcome to Politics 101. Please share the link. Our audiences have been very, very good. Very, very good. Already in the first minute and a half of the program, we have almost 200 people on. We are looking for a full house tonight. Last night we were 80% full. The previous night, um, we exceeded our capacity by 40%. So we want to have this program heard far and wide, far and wide. We got uh, we got a couple of messages on last night's program. One of them I would like to read here that says, "Good morning. I listened to Politics 101 last night with Dr. Hinds and Mr. Alexander. I respectfully suggest that a recording of what Mr. Alexander said be circulated nationwide soonest." That was from one of our viewers last night, and I I shared the view. I shared the view that the information we got last night from Mr. Alexander is priceless. It's priceless. He gave us an analysis of the election, and especially that statement of poll nonsense, that the election was not decided on statements of poll. The elections were decided on the recount, and so forth. I agree, and I will replay that program. I will replay that program tomorrow night on Friday night here on CAMS TV, and it will be on Channel 9 on the weekend. I think on Saturday at midday, and then Saturday at 5. Sorry, and then Sunday at midday. That's the schedule on Channel 9. And I want to thank all of you who have made financial contributions, because we have to pay for it to be shown on Channel 9. And we've been doing so for the last year. We've been broadcasting there on social media, and then 3 times per week here on social media, and 3 times per week on Channel 9. As I said, it's on Saturday at 5 p.m., Sunday at 12 midday, and then during the week, sometimes the rebroadcast of two times during the week. I don't have the during the week schedule, but certainly on the weekend. So I want to thank all of you who have contributed over the months and those of you who've contributed in the last couple of days to keeping Politics 101 alive here on social media, but also on Channel 9. I want to welcome everybody down to Politics 101. You've been very good. Over the last 2 weeks, we've seen our numbers really shoot up tremendously. We have not been paying a lot of attention to that, but now we are paying attention to it. As I said, on Tuesday night, we exceeded our capacity by 40%. Last night, we fell a little bit short, 81% attendance. Of course, there are people who would view the program after it was aired live, but I'm talking about our live audience. Tonight, we want a full house. Please share the link. Like it and share it. Like it, love it, and share it. Good night. If you're joining us wherever you are. There's election today in Grenada. If anybody is in Grenada, I think the polls are closing anytime now. In Sister Island, Grenada, I know quite a few Guyanese are there. So there's election there. I checked just before coming on to the program, and the polls were just closing. So later on tonight, we should have a sense of what's happening there. The ruling party has all the seats in Parliament. That's the ruling New National Party, led by Prime Minister Keith Mitchell. And of course, the NDC, the opposition party, currently has no seat in Parliament. That is possible. It is possible, as we've seen in Barbados. It is possible because they use what is called the first past the post system. That is that you contest the election in constituencies, and so you can get as the opposition in Grenada the last time got almost 40% of the vote, but doesn't have a seat in Parliament. They're hoping to turn that around, and tonight our show is going to be big. We're having Mr. Roysdale Ford, the Shadow Attorney General, and we are going to be talking about the hot button issues. Of course, we'll be talking about Mr. Sue, and that debacle there, that expose by Vice News. We've been talking about it all week, and we continue. We're going to have the perspective of Mr. Roysdale Ford tonight. He will bring to bear the legal perspective, but also the political perspective, because he has a very keen political mind. We have had him on this program before. So tell one, tell all. It's going to be a big program tonight. Roysdale Ford, he's already backstage and waiting. Please share the link. We have almost 350 people in the first 5 minutes. If all 350 of you share that link, we could go up to 700 just within 2 or 3 minutes. Please share the link. We've got to get into this business of sharing the food for thought and sharing the thought. We can be, the English people say craven, we in Guyana call it scraven. We can't be scraven and keep everything for ourselves. We can't be licorice and keep all the knowledge for ourselves, all the information, share it with others. Welcome if you're joining us from Guyana, beautiful Guyana. And Guyana has to be beautiful because we have survived. We have survived from the Middle Passage to the present. And so we have to be beautiful people. Don't let nobody beat you down and feel that you're not beautiful. You are beautiful, all Guyanese, regardless of our ethnic background. We are beautiful people. Politics, of course, and other issues of course, division among our people, but we are all beautiful people. Good night. Good night and welcome to Politics 101. Roysdale Ford is going to be on shortly. Of course, by now you've heard a lot of perspectives on the Mr. Sue issue. You've heard a lot of perspective, and you've heard a lot of perspective on the Commission of Inquiry that is announced by the PPP. A commission of inquiry that was announced by the PPP government, which was a participant in the election. So here is a participant by itself deciding on the commissioners, deciding in the first place that there should be a commission. We have not seen terms of reference, but we are waiting to see if they consult with the opposition as far as terms of reference are concerned. But the point here, that here is a participant in the election saying that it wants to investigate the election. Are they investigating the election from the pre-election day, or are they going to investigate the election from March 3rd? We don't know. We have not seen the terms of reference. That will determine. But what we know is that one participant has decided that they alone will decide who the umpires will be. They've chosen 4 umpires, 3 non-Guyanese and 1 Guyanese. And they have not consulted with anybody, not the political opposition, not the parliamentary opposition, not even their friends who helped them go to power, so-called civil society. You know, it's like when the civil society get beat up, the PPP and paying them no mind. But I love them still, and God must bless them because they're raising some issues. But you can't want to put a crook in power. And then when the crook you, when the crook mispursue you, when the crook smart you, you cry out, oh lad, is a crook. But you put the crook in power. The crook wasn't elected in a seamless election. Everything about the election showed that the election was inconclusive. God bless the PNC. APNU people will say they win, and PPP will say they win. But from my perspective, I'm being guided by what came out of the recount and what was reported by Mr. Lowenfield. There were too many anomalies in the election for him to come to a conclusion. I am still waiting. I want the petitions to be heard. I don't want no technicality to prevent the petition. It's too important. 2 years later, after when the petitions were filed, the court started off with a sprint. Usain Bolt. And then all of a sudden, things are slowed down. The CCJ, during the 5 months, they were hearing cases like this. They got things on the petition before the CCJ. Come quickly, let we have the petition being heard. Instead of the petition, we are now hearing of a commission of inquiry by one of the participants. My auntie always tell me, I send you to school so that nobody will smart you. And I suppose all we auntie and granny and mommy and daddy send me to school so that nobody will smart me. And they believe they're smart. Bob Marley say, playing smart but not being clever. Clever is not necessarily a virtue of the PPP, but they feel they're smart. You slow down the petition. You slow down the trial of the people you say you see thief in. You ensure that there is no review at GCOM, and you sneak in or think you're sneaking in this COI, Commission of Inquiry. I don't want to imitate people. I'm not good at that. But one big boy who runs his own cabinet out of Pradoville said that there would have been no inquiry. And then another big boy who run in the shell of the government. Parallel government. Mr. Sue is my friend. Mr. Sue is my friend. You talk to Mr. Sue. He's my friend. Mr. Ali. Dr. Ali. Dr. Ali. I didn't get used to it yet. Dr. Ali. Is Mr. Sue your friend? Is Mr. Sue acting on your behalf? You are designated the president of Guyana. We want to hear what you have to say on Mr. Sue. Is he part of your cabinet? Has he ever attended cabinet meetings? Have you ever met him? Do you deal with Chinese businessmen? You hold the ceremonial official office of president. Here, I don't have any confidence that he gonna have Jack D or Jack D gonna resign, but that don't mean we don't call for it, because we have something to work to. And I have known of instances before where you have this kind of situation and people call for the minister to resign, and the prime minister or president said, no resignation. And then the power of the people force resignation. I'm going to be putting all of these questions to Mr. Roysdale Ford. I want him to have an audience. We are 54% along the way. I wanted Roysdale to start with a 70% capacity, but I don't want to keep him waiting. So we're going to start at 54%. Please share the link, because we want a full school tonight. Full school. Thank you. Thank you, Desiree, watching there from Maryland, Rockville, PG County, and the DC and Virginia area. I know the area well. I lived there for 12 years, and my family and them still live there. I call that, after Guyana, this is my first home, I call Maryland, Washington, DC area my second home. And of course, I work in another part of America, that's my third home. Welcome down to Politics of One. Politics 101, we've gone up to 58%. So I'm trusting that you all are coming in a little bit late, right? So I'm going to bring in Roysdale now, and let's start the action. Listen, Mr. Ford.
Hi, good evening, Dr. Hinds, and good evening to your audience.
Thank you. And nice having you on. Always like to have you on to get your perspective. It's usually on target, but it's usually presented in a way all of us, non-legal people, non-lawyer people, can understand what's going on. So let's talk right away. We start with the Commission of Inquiry. And I want to start here. The petitions have been filed. The government has charged a number of people at GCOM. The chairman of GCOM, along with the 3 PPP commissioners, they have declined to have a review of the election. And now we have an election commission of inquiry announced by the government. They've not announced terms of reference. They've announced 4 commissioners. To the best of my knowledge, they've not consulted with the official opposition. They've not consulted with civil society as we know them. Those are the variables we are playing with. two petitions, charges against top GCOM people, including the CEO of GCOM, the deputy CEO of GCOM, a motion to have a review at GCOM was filed since February. In recent times, we have heard that GCOM is not going to go through with this review because GCOM is not a court of law. And now we have this COI. I've put the variables there. I think those are the major ones. I may be missing. When you look at those variables together, Roysdale, I'm sending you back to law school, right? You take all those variables together, tell us what's happening.
Well, what is happening, Dr. Hinds and the audience, is that we really and truly have a situation where the government is seeking to determine the outcome and to set a narrative in relation to what happened in March 2020 in relation to the elections and the period after, right down to August 2nd. But Dr. Hinds, you did a remarkable job in putting together the elements of what is happening today. And I would like to build on that and to put them into the proper categories. In the case of Hinds against the Queen, a landmark decision by the Privy Council, the court says that Westminster type constitutions, including ours, there's not orthodox Westminster type, is predicated on the separation of powers, the executive, the judiciary, and the legislature. And I want to now to put the elements that you identified, Dr. Hinds, in their proper categories. The Constitution establishes a mechanism by way of an election petition to determine the validity of an election. So that falls under the judiciary. We had the occurrence of this government instituting criminal proceedings against persons, alleging all sorts of illegalities and criminal acts in relation to the elections. So all of that falls under the control of the judiciary. But the Constitution goes further, Dr. Hinds, and seeks to insulate and take away from the control of politicians and the executive and the legislature and even the courts to some extent, the operation and management of electoral issues. So if there's anybody to engage in an investigation, interrogation in relation to what happened in the elections, it will be in the first instance the courts by way of an election petition, and secondly, the exercise of the independent power that the CCJ says that the Election Commission possess. So in my opinion, Dr. Hinds, what we really see happening is, from the point of view of the Elections Commission, is an abandonment, an abdication, and a complete shirking of their constitutional responsibility to review what happened. You see, it is being communicated to the public as if the Elections Commission is doing us a favor by seeking to engage in an interrogation or a review of what happened during these elections. This is a fundamental part of their constitutional remit. So they must engage in that process. Mr. Alexander and the other GCOM commissioners who support the motion are not asking for a favor. So having said that context, Dr. Hinds, in relation to what is happening, I don't want to throw in the unilateral exercise of the executive's power to engage in a commission of inquiry. Now, this commission of inquiry is not coming into effect at a time when the elections petitions would have been completed and they're not in the courts. They're not coming into a time when the GCOM, as the electoral body, the independent, supposedly electoral body, would have determined what it wanted to do. It's not coming into effect at a time when criminal proceedings are not in the courts at any time. So we see the unilateral exercise of executive power to ensure that a commission of inquiry is held by a participant in the elections who picks the persons who are involved. And what we see happening, Dr. Hinds and the members of the public, is an assertion, the increased exercise of power by an executive running roughshod over institutions which are set up to ensure that these sort of issues are handled.
And there you have it from Mr. Roysdale Ford, laying it out for us, putting it in its larger perspective. But what you have here are colliding instruments, colliding elements, to use Mr. Roysdale Ford, colliding elements. The GCOM's review this unilateral action on the part of the executive. Someone is asking him, Roysdale, before we move on, whether there can be an injunction against the COI moving forward. Help us.
Well, Dr. Hinds, I just wanted to add from what I said before, that it is my view that the Commission of Inquiry, prima facie, on the face of it, seems to be unconstitutional. We have the court matters ongoing. We have the election petition coming up next month, one of them coming up next month, before the CCJ. So these are issues which are alive. And my understanding of the law, I don't know whether the Attorney General has a grasp of the issues and the legal issues relating to these matters. He doesn't seem so. To have advised the president legally to do this doesn't make sense. It's got to be a pure, irrational, political decision. This can't be a sensible legal proposition that this is based on. So Dr. Hinds, having regard to the fact that I believe that what is happening here would be interventions by the executive within the jurisdiction of the courts, within the jurisdiction of the judicial entities established by the Constitution. Yes, an executive has the power to establish a commission of inquiry, but their power to do so is circumscribed by the exercise of what is happening in the other branches of government. So it is my respectful opinion, Dr. Hinds, that it is unconstitutional. I prefer to wait to see what would be the terms of reference, because the terms of reference would bring to life the colors on the fabric of the intervention and the illegalities that the government are seeking to engage in here.
And there you have it. There you have it. There you have it. We are part of a Westminster model of government that has separation of powers. The president is acting on behalf of the executive branch, and we have in the judicial branch. Here the court, which is in the process of hearing the elections petition. And the fundamental question that has been raised here is this COI by the president? Roysdale has not taken away the power of the president to hold the COI. I have not. It's within their right to do that. But powers have to be seen within the context of the larger political framework. If the executive, by carrying out its power, interferes with the work of another branch of government, then we are in some problems here. There is separation of power for good reasons, but we do not have the supremacy of executive in our constitution. And I think I am putting it, the lawyers, they say, the cross-examination, I'm putting it to you. I am putting it to you. Mr. Roysdale Ford, I can't help but saying that what the president has done here, given what you've said and what I've smacks of an attempt at executive supremacy, which the Constitution doesn't provide for.
Yeah, yes, it doesn't. It doesn't provide for it, and cursory research would indicate, even in situations where, in the English constitutional system, where there's no written constitution, and even where there's the supremacy of parliament,
Yes.
there are cases coming out from those jurisdictions which craft a certain doctrine that if the executive seeks to establish a commission of inquiry whilst there are court proceedings ongoing, that it constitutes a contempt of the court. So that is a subsidiary principle which would support our position this afternoon, that what the government is doing is illegal. And in our context, it constitutes a breach of the separation of powers. It constitutes an encroachment on the judicial branch of the powers. And even though a commission of inquiry is not per se a judicial exercise, the implementation and operation of it would be an interference in the judicial processes.
Interference in the judicial process. Welcome to Politics 101. Roysdale Ford, Shadow Attorney General, is on with us tonight. We are 80% full. We have 20% seats. Share the link and make sure we have a full house. We are respectful to everyone, including those who have been sent here to make trouble. One of the troublemakers is asking me about attempt to rig an election. I don't know of any attempt to rig an election. I know the PPP has accused the coalition of attempting to rig the election, and many people were trying to coerce me into lending my voice to this rig election story. I have been around politics long enough to know when I smell a rat. I grew up in poor people's house, so there was always rat, and we always smelling rat. And I smelled the rat later on when they did the recount. It confirmed what I suspected. The election was rigged long before March 3rd. So if you're all claiming that you all see some election rig on March 3rd, it would be an attempt to rig an already rigged election. That's what you all thought. The elections were rigged long before March 3rd. You all get that in your pipe and smoke it. That's why you all don't want election. That's why you are trying to use this commission of inquiry. That is why when Vincent Alexander said last night that this statement to poll that you all talking about the elections were not determined by statements of poll, but by the statements of recount. Whatever you think about the recount, that is where the contention is. Roysdale Ford.
So, Dr. Hinds, I want to deal with something that you mentioned earlier, if you would permit me. You mentioned earlier that the Elections Commission announced that they're not a court, right? They're not a court. But you know, Dr. Hinds, this is the second time I believe that the Elections Commission would have come out with this preposterous statement. No one is saying that the Elections Commission is a court, but the Elections Commission has constitutional obligations, it has administrative responsibilities, and it has the responsibility to produce a credible election. Dr. Hinds, if no election petition was filed in this matter, but the recount was undertaken, and the results that we know came out, together with what is listed in the observation report, the chairman of the Elections Commission should have seriously considered whether she delivered a credible election. Has she delivered a credible election? And you now want to take the country to a local government election. You don't want to engage in an analysis of what you would have done. As a matter of fact, Dr. Hinds, the Elections Commission should have convened this review, identify credible persons to do it for them. Because I'm not even confident that the Elections Commission can credibly produce an independent and honest examination of themselves. Dr. Hinds, there's no question about it. When you look at the observation reports that came out of this election, the election inherently lacked any credibility.
Yeah, yeah.
It is not just because the chief election officer said so, it's because it was manifest in what came out. How could you have an election where 49 ballot boxes, which amounted to almost 12,000 votes, almost 2.5 seats in the National Assembly, can't be explained? And up to today's date, June 2022, Madam Justice Claudette Singh, the chairman of the Elections Commission, or any member of the Elections Commission, could explain this to us. They can't explain this to us. They could talk what they want to talk, Dr. Hinds, but by a careful process of analysis, GCOM was served with documents indicating the names of persons who died but were recorded on GCOM's records on election day as having exercised the franchise to vote. We were able to submit based on confirmation from the authorities and sent to the chief immigration officer and confirmed by him, who is the commissioner of police, that these persons were not in the country on election day, but nevertheless, people were authorized or allowed to vote for them. So, Dr. Hinds, what is the Elections Commission doing about this? And are these the issues that the government wishes to raise by way of a commission of inquiry? I think not. And I don't believe that, having regard to what they would have and how they would have conducted themselves over the past 2 years or so, would give me any confidence or give any Guyanese any confidence that this commission of inquiry is not simply a political mechanism, a device and a sham that is being contrived in the minds of Bara Jagdeo and Irfan Ali only to set a new narrative in relation to what happened in the Elections Commission and at the elections. You see, Dr. Hinds, we're being told that the economy is growing, and the economy, I concede, from what I see, is potentially growing. But two things are happening. There's growth without human development. And as we go on, the international community is becoming more and more alarmed about the course of conduct being undertaken by this government, by this regime. And investors are becoming more and more hesitant to drop a cent into Guyana. So the government also wants to create this commission of inquiry as a propaganda mechanism to reset their image. But you can't come to power through such a process and expect any resetting of any image by a commission of inquiry. It can't happen. You could come up with 54 pages of glorious things. It cannot change the reality of what is documented publicly, of what is documented and known around the world. And the refusal of the Elections Commission, I believe, is complicit in the support of the government to engage in this commission of inquiry. It makes no sense, Dr. Hinds. None whatsoever.
Absolutely no sense. Roysdale, before I ask you two more questions about that GCOM thing, Carl is asking a question here that I think has some relevance. He said, could Mr. Ford explain the reality that there is no true separation of powers? For example, the Attorney General is a member of the three branches of government, and the executive are also members of the legislative branch. How is this affecting the kinds of decision being made by the executive? And I want you to answer that question, because when I teach political science, I get the same question. Is the separation of powers artificial, given that in the Westminster model, you can belong to two branches of government? And so I think it's an important question for people who are trying to grapple with the notion of separation of powers. Can you give it?
Yes, Dr. Hinds. Dr. Hinds, the first thing I want to say is that the Attorney General is not a member of the three branches of government.
Right.
The Attorney General is a minister who forms part of the executive,
right.
And by virtue of being extracted from the list, he's a member of the National Assembly, the legislature arm,
right.
or the legislature of the government. Now, the concept of the separation of powers is a theoretical understanding of the allocation in a very orthodox manner, in a very philosophical manner, of the allocation of powers. So, Dr. Hinds, it would be virtually impossible to identify a constitution that is virtually seamless in terms of its interactions between the three branches of government. Recent cases coming out from the senior and high judicial tribunals in the Commonwealth have acknowledged this reality, that you would have an interplay, particularly between the executive and the legislature. And even to that extent, the courts are expected, as the guardian of the Constitution, to ensure that the executive does not render the legislature a mere rubber stamp. But it will happen in terms of a practical understanding and a political understanding, where the legislature is comprised of persons who form part of the executive, that they will end up being a predominant influence in the legislature. But under no circumstances, Dr. Hinds, in the context of both the theory and in the practical reality and interflow between these three branches of the government, is the judicial powers ever expected to form part of the legislative arm of government, and at no time are they expected to be utilized, encroached upon, or rendered nugatory by the undertaking of any executive function on the part of an executive. So within the context of the separation of powers, we see orbiting there three branches of government. There's a lot of interplay and connection between the executive and the legislature. But if we could envisage it as a concept, the judicial branch is somewhere there by itself as part of the wider scheme, ensuring that the other two branches act within the accordance with the Constitution, and at the same time, never to be part of those two branches. And that is why I started off the examination of what we have to speak about today by putting it within the proper context, so that our members of our party and the citizens of the country and listeners around the world will understand how grievous, how strange and unacceptable the appointment and establishment of a commission of inquiry at this time in relation to judicial matters that are ongoing. So the courts would say you can exercise a power is vested in you, but the exercise of the power may be rendered unconstitutional and illegal and void to the extent that it seeks to encroach into the operation of an established branch of government and in relation to functions of an established branch of government that are assigned to them by the Constitution.
By the Constitution. Well put. I think the equilibrium between the executive and the legislative branch, of course, is premised on a sense of this, both the letter and the spirit of the Constitution, but most importantly, the role of the courts in ensuring that equilibrium is there, because it is not the absoluteness of the separation, but it's the equilibrium, and that is why judicial review becomes important, and that is why that nonsensical thing that I heard some people, even on the CCJ, during the 5 months talking, well, not the CCJ, but some of the lawyers who are arguing cases, talking about an abuse of the court. I have to submit that, the court cannot be abused in that way. When you have a situation that we have had in the last 3 years, the court has to step in to hold that equilibrium, and there's nothing in the Constitution that puts anyone from going to the court to ask the court to ensure that the executive does not take advantage of the notion of separation of powers. Roysdale Ford.
You're perfectly correct, Dr. Hinds, and I think that I feel like I'm taking over your show tonight.
No, it's your show, not my show.
Because, Dr. Hinds, I believe that this leads us into another important issue.
Yes,
that have happened within the past 24 hours. The opposition, and I'm the lawyer, filed a court challenge, challenging the failure of Irfan Ali to initiate the process that will lead to the permanent appointments either of the current occupants who are acting, or to would lead to the permanent appointments of persons holding the offices of Chancellor and Chief Justice. Now, Dr. Hinds, having discussed what we discussed so far, you see the importance of the judiciary. You see the importance of the judiciary not being in the hands of the executive, not being accountable to the executive, not to be held ransom, and the offices and the possibilities of confirmation dangled above and before the Chancellor and the Chief Justice. And that is why it is important that those offices be held by persons holding permanent appointments. And having regard to what is transpiring in this country, having regard to the posture of the PPPC's administration, they want to have a subservient judiciary. They want a subservient judiciary. And a subservient judiciary will be the death knell of the Constitution. It will be the death knell of the rights of every single Guyanese. You know, Dr. Hinds, persons only value the courts and value the law when they're in a jam. You ever find that, Dr. Hinds?
Yes.
Before then care who's the judge, the law is a sort of stupidness, being interested, until you got to come to court. And then you realize what this system means, how it controls your life in ways that you don't even know, you can't even imagine. Then you start wondering. And the strange thing about it, Dr. Hinds, is that the law sometimes don't know APNU, and they don't know PPP. And the supporters of the PPP who spew the nonsense that they spew about saying that the courts are independent and therefore Irfan Ali is entitled to do what he wants to do and not to conform this. I have seen the nonsense being said. What we have done today by filing that matter secures your own rights.
Yes.
It secures your own rights. So when we look at it in the broader context of what is happening in Guyana, in terms of the move to have this commission of inquiry, the courts will play a fundamental and pivotal role, as they ought to have to play, as they are designed to play in the Constitution, to ensure that this travesty would be terminated.
And a couple of comments here from our audience. Why was Roysdale Ford not an Attorney General when the APNU was in office? That's from Debbie. Another comment here. I feel that I now understand the interrelationship of the various forces that are at work here in Guyana. And then we have here from Mr. Arjun said, I am on here tonight as a troublemaker, but I have to say that I'm being given a lesson in the separation of powers and how it works. I'm glad D.O. Arjun. Another one, Jamal, says that, yes, I'm a troublemaker, but I now see when I hear Dr. Hinds speak tonight, I understand the value of an education at Howard University. He did not waste his time there. Thank you all so much, especially troublemakers, for recognizing that you all come to make trouble, but all you're learning. And you all are out in your numbers tonight, and we love you all too. But we are educators. We are educators. We are educators. When slavery was eventually, when we forced our foreparents, forced the abolition of slavery, they did three things immediately. They built schools. They built churches. Next to the churches, they built schools. the spirit and the education was uppermost. And of course, the third thing they did was they built an economy. And then the fourth thing, they built their government. They did that in Guyana. The village council was their government. They took their backlands and turned them into productive spaces, the economy, the cooperatives, and of course, the churches, and next to the churches, the schools. We are educators, and we are prepared to educate even those who come in as fools, like Mr. Dio. You are not going to leave here as a dunce tonight. You are leaving here very, very educated tonight. And we would have done, Dio, I want to recognize you're not leaving here as a dunce tonight. I will ensure that you don't. Roysdale, let's move to this Vice News expose, because you had something to say about it in the media. Let me give you the widest of fields. Is there something that violates the Constitution and the laws of Guyana in that scenario? As a lawyer, with your head in the law, when you look at that program, is there something there that violates the Constitution and the law?
Dr. Hinds, it's a very involved question.
Yes.
And I'm going to say yes, Dr. Hinds. The entire recording in relation to I'm dealing here now with the parts between the reporter and the vice president, Barra Jagdeo. We could deal with the parts with Sue and so on, but I just want to cut those portions out.
Yes.
They are replete with considerations which would lead you to conclude that it does not pass the smell test. And its smell test is invariably tied to a pathway that will lead you to conclude on close examination that there are questionable issues involved here. As I said publicly, Dr. Hinds, and I believe I came out early in response to what I saw on the Vice News recording. This is not about whether Barra Jagdeo and Sue had a friendship. That has been answered. This is not about whether Dr. Barra Jagdeo, as he calls himself, and Sue had an understanding on every material occasion in relation to what we saw, that they both knew what the conversation was about. We see the vice president now saying that I didn't really know what he's Sue talking about. But he knew fully well what Sue was speaking about, because he said that Sue will handle the agreements. And what are these agreements that Sue will handle? Then he proceeds to say that he will handle things from the government side. Now, Dr. Hinds, the true problem here that we have is that the first, Jagdeo allowed himself, in my opinion, knowingly to be a potential participant in an illegality. That's the first thing. That is obvious. The second thing that is obvious is that Jagdeo allowed himself to become part of an operation that is not consistent with the established institutions of the state. If Sue and the Chinese man, whoever he would have been, who was posing to be an investor, had a problem, you must go invest and the established institutions of the state to meet them and to have them ironed out. You do not say that you have a public open door policy and open your door to Sue at your home and invite him and somebody who's a complete stranger. You telling us he's a complete stranger. You never met him before in your life. You're the vice president and a complete stranger, your neighbor, your tenant, is bringing into your home. Dr. Hinds, man, look, I mean, what stubbornness is that, man? Let me reason together tonight, man.
Yeah.
Who are you going to tell Dr. Hinds? I mean, it's better you didn't say nothing.
Exactly.
But you can't come out with that sort of thing. The fourth issue that I wanted to raise in relation to cutting out the interview with the reporter and Jagdeo is clearly, Dr. Hinds, it is a question, in my opinion, of integrity. Because no one other than Jagdeo knows that the way to handle these matters, he's a former president, he's a former minister of finance, he has experience in government, he's not a shiny. It's not the first day on the job, not the first 2 years on the job. These matters must be dealt with at a arm's length position. If by going through the processes you encounter a problem, you then get back to us. So when he says that what we would have done, we would have met with all 12 investors for the hotels, you met with all 12 of them in your house, you invited all 12 of them. So yes, it is probably conceivable that as the government, investors would come in and you want to meet with them. Or they want to meet with you. But you meet with them in an open environment where light could come in. What we see happening here, Dr. Hinds, is that I get the impression that this is a impropriety that was undertaken. An impropriety that is questionable in terms of the conduct of what is happening. And in our country, Dr. Hinds, you live in the United States, you would know that for less, you're a goner in the United States.
Yes.
You know for less, you're a goner. And in relation to the operation of public officials who are elected, we must now examine and consider seriously, especially in view of the fact that we are now an oil economy and investors would be coming into this country, we need to establish once and for all the rules that will govern the relationship, that will govern meetings, that will cover interactions between investors. There must no longer be the possibility that these things could happen, and it is taken to be okay, We need to put laws in place that will deal with lobbying. Now, you know, again, Dr. Hinds, I see you have certain guests here tonight who wish to disagree with me, and they could cuss and carry on how they want, but it will not change the hypocrisy. It will not change the fact that Jagdeo did what he did. They could cuss night and day, day and night, Christmas time, Easter, every day. It will not change it. You know, Dr. Hinds, a few years ago, a picture came out in public, and Guyana Times went down the line, and Jack Dio and all of them were hollering up and down that Mr. Joseph Harmon, who was traveling in a plane, the picture came out. You remember that, Dr. Hinds?
Yeah, I remember. I remember.
And he received the worst shellacking known to mankind, right? And here you have something coming out of the words of Jagdeo that are at least 10,000 times or more worse. And you want to come on social media and cuss on people and carry on and pretend that it didn't happen? It's the same sort of revisionist approach to life and reality that they want to engage in relation to the election petition. It's the same type of outlook on life that they want to engage in establishing this commission of inquiry. So, as far as I'm concerned, coming back to the commission of inquiry, we have a situation where we have 5 persons appointed who the government expects and certainly have confidence in, who will paint a new picture, a new version of reality. And you know, the Guyanese people have to decide, I keep saying this, the Guyanese people have to decide whether this is what they want, whether this is a society that they think will advance their interests.
Roysdale Ford, the Shadow Attorney General, been laying it out here tonight. Now, look, we have our work too, both in terms of the formal systems. Mr. Roysdale Ford is a member of Parliament, and he has his work at that level to do. We are doing our work here in terms of educating, informing and mobilizing those who share our view, and also educating those who don't share our view. We don't waste time here. I don't come here to waste time for 90 minutes in the night, and I don't invite people here to waste time. I have always said that this program will be an example to us in Guyana of how we can have civil discourses, that we can discuss politics. Roysdale and I belong to different political parties. And when I sit here, I'm not coming here to fight political party battle, but to help this nation to see its way through the maze that the PPP has imposed on us. And those of you all who are coming on and trying to engage our audience, all I ask is don't cuss. Don't cuss. I am not in the business of blocking people, but you all don't cuss. I put so one of you all cussing up on the screen for everybody to see just now. Don't cuss on the program. If you all want to cuss me, meet me off the thing, come to Buxton and let me cuss down in Buxton, right? But don't come to program and cuss up. If you come and you engage reason and you're frustrated, go back and tell your bosses, send somebody who's more intelligent. All right? Good night, my friend, former Minister Annette Ferguson is in the house tonight. Annette, good night. And I want to congratulate us. I think seats are out. We're over, we're now what, 115%. it means that 50% of you all got to stand up, right? So let's congratulate ourselves. Last night we fell short by 20%. Tonight we've compensated over now by 20%. Still share the link. We have a couple of minutes left. And like I said, you all don't be crazy, don't be licorice. Don't want this thing only for yourself. Share the link and let others know that it's happening tonight on Politics 101. All right? Last night you all tell me that I must replay Vincent's program in explaining thing. And I see some of you are already saying that you joined late and we should replay the program. I said this program will be seen on Channel 9 broadcast TV on the weekend, right? Those of you who are not in Guyana, tell your family, check it out. Those of you who join late, you can check it out then, and so forth. I want to thank Linda, for your contribution over the last 24 hours. It helps. It helps. Roysdale, let me ask you this question here. You're not a political scientist, you're a lawyer, and I expect you to come from that perspective. Are we in the face of a full-blown dictatorship?
I certainly have reason to believe, Dr. Hinds, that we are being governed, at least, by people that have that mindset. The only thing saving us, Dr. Hinds, from becoming a full-blown dictatorship is the continued existence of, within the formal structure, a political, someone is knocking me, distracting me. Sorry about that, Dr. Hinds. But I'm saying that the only thing that is saving us currently is the judiciary in terms of the formal structure. Because what we have happening here, Dr. Hinds, we have the mindset of a dictatorship. We see the current government wanting to do exactly what they want to do. You see them wanting to run counter to the constitutional norms. They want to run counter to the forms and established modes of good governance. And I believe that if we fail to resist, if we fail to stand up, we are certainly going to become a full-blown dictatorship.
We certainly on our way there. Kirk Bentic, regular, loyal. Thank you, Kirk, for all that you've done to keep Politics 101 on air, both here on social media and on broadcast TV channel 9 in Guyana. Roysdale, where we are with the petitions. I know there's some case before the case. As usual, bring us up to date.
Well, Dr. Hinds, in relation to the petition, the government and Barra Jagdeo filed an appeal to the CCJ after the Court of Appeal ruled that it has jurisdiction to entertain an appeal where a petition would have been dismissed by the High Court for non-compliance. The Court of Appeal's decision is now, as I said, being appealed. That is coming up on the 19th of July in the CCJ. We have just a few more days to lay over our written submissions in reply to the submissions filed by the Attorney General and filed on behalf of Barra Jagdeo. So we are going to be laying over strong legal arguments in relation to those issues. So that is what is going to be happening in relation to that appeal. In relation to the other election petition, unfortunately, up to now, the High Court has not yet released its decision. I have asked the Court of Appeal and the officials there to ensure that the judgment of the Chief Justice is made available. That has been over 14 months, I believe. We've been waiting for that petition to be heard on appeal. So the appeals, Dr. Hinds, are on foot. They're being heard. They remain in the court. And that certainly indicates the inappropriateness much less the unconstitutionality at this time to establish a commission of inquiry into these matters?
A commission of inquiry into these matters. Roysdale Ford, who is the shadow attorney general, I'm taking time out from his schedule to come here tonight. And I wanted him to come here tonight because I read closely his comments on both the Mr. Sue issue and the issue of the commission of inquiry that is being announced. And we know that not all of us are multimedia. Not all of us read the newspapers. Not all of us read particular newspapers. And so we wanted to bring Mr. Roysdale Ford into your homes tonight, into your phones, in your computers, and so forth, so that those of you who did not read it in the newspapers would get the chance to hear him interact on this media. And surely he has not let us down. Roysdale, you've surely been following that shooting of the young man in Golden Grove, Quindon, any thoughts on that incident? It's been 2 weeks today, and still no word. The family has not gotten any word. All they've heard is that the alleged shooter is under close arrest, and that the police investigative body, I think that's what it's called, is looking at the matter. 14 days, you've seen the video, all of us have seen the video. You care to give some comments on that?
Certainly, Dr. Hinds. Dr. Hinds, this is part of the sad reality of what happens in Guyana. I don't want to say it, but it is the reality. It seems to happen only when, at this rate, Dr. Hinds, at this rate, in this disturbing manner, because policemen from time to time will invariably step out of line and shoot someone. It happens. But it seems to happen, Dr. Hinds, that whenever the PPP administration is in power, the Guyana police force somehow becomes confident that they could simply do whatever they want to do. And I believe, Dr. Hinds, that this is another manifestation of what is happening. Dr. Hinds, you would recall that in the National Assembly during my budget presentation, myself and Nandalal had a very strong exchange during my presentation, because he wanted me not to speak about the fact that since August 2020 to when the budget speech was being delivered by me, that there have been a rise of extrajudicial killings in the country that was predominantly directed somehow to African Guyanese and African Guyanese young men. This is a reality, Dr. Hinds, and it is not a question of being racist. It's not a question of advancing a racial cause. It is the reality that almost invariably the persons who are shot dead by the Guyana police force happen to be young African Guyanese men. And this government fails to understand how this impacts on the society. They fail to understand how this impacts on the racial problems in the society. They fail to understand how this impacts on the psychological and scarring that takes place in relation to families. And they fail to do anything whatsoever to confront it. You had Irfan Ali saying at an international forum that there's no extrajudicial killing in Guyana. Where this man lives. And this is the administration that he's the head of. Our people in this country, Dr. Hinds, and by people I mean every single person, irrespective of race, irrespective of their orientation politically, must understand that the decisions made by this administration are against their best interests. Similarly, Dr. Hinds, as we would have filed matters in relation to the offices of Chancellor and Chief Justice, we had this situation where the president unilaterally, in the absence of a police service commission, and in the absence, on the other hand, of a leader of the opposition, proceeded to appoint unilaterally. And this brings back, Dr. Hinds, to what you asked me earlier about whether we are in a dictatorship, because I'm now matching actions against the mindset. Actions against the mindset. Proceeded to appoint unilaterally a commissioner of police.
Yeah.
And that wasn't the end of it, Dr. Hinds. Then proceeded to appoint unilaterally a police service commission. Then proceeded to appoint unilaterally an integrity commission. The integrity commission by law is the watchdog, is the regulatory authority in relation to the accumulation of assets for public people, including politicians. So you go and appoint unilaterally a police service commission, an integrity commission. To top it off nicely, you go and stick in a police commissioner, and then you decide that you don't want to appoint no chancellor and chief justice and so on. And everything's supposed to be running nice, right? Everybody's supposed to go home, feel comfortable that the rights of their families and themselves are secured. Tell me if this is not a dictatorship, Dr. Hinds. And that is why I will continue to file, and my party will continue to file, and the opposition will continue to file every single viable challenge that will hold this government accountable. And it must be determined by the courts.
Roysdale Ford, the Shadow Attorney General, himself a legal practitioner, senior counsel, when he's not in wearing its political hat. It's been quite a show tonight. We have gone past our target. We are now past our target by 20%. Thank you all for coming out in your numbers tonight, because we've got to keep this thing going. We're building a movement. We are building a movement. That's what we are doing, because there is power. There is power in movement. There's power in movement. We can't deal with the enormity of the situation that we're dealing with if we don't build a movement. And by movement, it means that we've got to fight on all fronts. We've got to fight in the courts. We've got to fight in the streets when it's necessary. We've got to fight here on social media and politics 101 and below the belt and all the other social media programs. We've got to fight wherever we are, whether it's in the Union Hall or whether it's when we go to worship. I'm not saying to turn your churches into political platforms, but where we meet, we must show solidarity with each other and become conscious of the situation that is facing us in our country. I want to thank the people of Golden Grove, Nabaklis, Haslington, who are out there every day, every night. They came to town yesterday. They are highlighting and they're counting today. Today's 14 days. They're out there. They're calling for justice for that young man, and he will be buried on Sunday. Let us, wherever we are in Guyana, show up for that funeral. Pay the little passage, whether you're in Mahaica or Ansgrove or West Coast Bobbies. Pay the little passage and go there. Go there to celebrate the life of a young man and of all the young men who were taken away from us. Go there to mourn with the family. Go there to show solidarity with those families. Go there to do something. All you've been talking about boots in the ground, on the ground. Go there and make that homegoing service for that young man, a statement that we are not dead, that we are not dying as a people, we are conscious of what's going on. You know, those of us who go to school and read little books, where you hear, look, where you hear Roysdale say, oh man, oh, I mean, you know, when we learn in people, as you all would say, come down and say, oh man, I mean, oh, you're trying to throw dust in the eye. I mean, you really think me that stupid? No, you obviously can't think it's stupid. It's you stupid. It's you who's stupid. And me auntie always tell me, if a man want play himself stupid, you help him become more stupid. And that's what we're going to do with Mr. Taco and them. One play stupid, we're going to make them come more stupid, right? They tell the world how we say, you know, we gonna block up the country and how we preaching racism and how we this and how we that. The world is seeing who want to block up this country. The world is seeing who's into racism, right? You want to hear no racism here tonight? You want to hear no block up the country here tonight? What you hear on here tonight is what we hear every night. And that is we bring here wisdom on the situation. We bring to bear encouragement for you because a lot of you been thinking what Roysdale said tonight. And when Roysdale said, you said, yes, that is what I was thinking. I want to thank all of you. You know, you stopped me on the streets. I can't remember all the names and so on. You know, you're on the program. Thank us for what we are doing. Yesterday, as I turned out to that PNC demonstration in front of the office of the president, a young member of parliament came to me as I joined the thing and said, Dr. Hinds, thank for all you do for us. All you do for us. And people come up to me all the time and say that. The young man who came up to me at the Buxton gas station and said he's not a Buxtonian, he married in to Buxton, but he wants to thank us for all that we do every day. This is part of struggle. Struggle is not go and bam, 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 bam. No. There's a little scrabble, right? Struggle is a serious thing. It's about the lives of people. It's about the future of our country. The future looks bright, but it's only going to be bright if we make it bright. And we've got to move the darkness away so that we can see through to the end of the tunnel. We can see the light at the end of the tunnel. And so I want to thank you all. Ms. James is listening from Western Ontario. Good night. Roysdale, any closing thoughts, any message for the audience? The audience is always, they're always glad to hear from people like yourselves who are inside of the system. And sometimes they feel that you all are there doing nothing. So I always want, whenever people like yourself come on, to speak to the audience directly and to help them to understand what is it that you all are engaged in doing as you are part of a system in which the opposition doesn't have very much space to do much. But yet the opposition is vital to ensuring that the system works. Over to you, my brother.
Yes, Dr. Hinds, I agree that, you know, the perception is in some quarters of our support that we, the opposition, do nothing. But I believe that is slowly changing as we interact more with the public through your program and other similar programs. The fact is that we do quite a lot of work. And I continue, like you, Dr. Hinds, to receive good wishes and words of support from Guyanese and even non-Guyanese around the world. And it really plays a role in strengthening you and providing you with the sort of encouragement to undertake more and more the work that you have to do. Um, Dr. Hinds, I would like to take this opportunity to um, extend condolences to the family of my colleague MP, Sister Natasha Singh Lewis, on the passing of her dear husband. It is a severe loss to her family. Um, I know her husband well. We were being friends for many, many years. And I would want to take the liberty also on behalf of my party and on behalf of the citizens of this country to offer her support. And moreover, during this difficult time, I believe that we should remember her in our prayers for the strength of her family and for the soul of her dear departed husband.
And I'm now getting that news, Roysdale, and I want on my own behalf, on behalf of this program and the viewers, on behalf of my party, the Working People's Alliance, to really echo your sentiments. I'm no longer. I met him at a demonstration, the Square of the Revolution, last year, and he was giving Christmas presents to all the political people who were there. And he sought me out to say, Dr. Hinds, I have this present. Really serene soul as I spoke with him for about 2 to 3 minutes. You know, sometimes you speak with people and you get that feeling, a kind of serenity there. And, you know, his wife was brave because when you were joining the PNC, coming out of an Indian Guyanese community, there's a lot of bravery there, you know? And you know, I always like to hail those people up for their bravery. And so I want to echo your sentiments and condolences to her, to the family on the passing of her husband. My God, you know, too many deaths, man. Oh God. You know, every day souls are passing away. I remember that well when I used to go to wake singing, you know, somebody's crying, somebody's dying. Every day souls are passing. My brother, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And as usual, I'll be calling on you. The notice was a little late today, but you stepped up. And I apologize profusely. Next time I will give you longer notice. But thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Hinds. Thank you for your audience, for entertaining me in their homes this evening. Thank you.
And I can't stop saying thank you to you, the people. I've said over and over again, I have tremendous respect and confidence in you, the people. There is no struggle. There is no change. There's no transformation anywhere in the world without people. Those of us who sit here and moderate and explain and so on, we are speaking with your voice. Your voice. We are where we are because you made it possible. You continue to make those sacrifices. We went to school with your tax money. We got in through the door that many of you could not get through because you weren't at the right place at the right time. Without you all, there is no us. Without you, there is no me. I love you all. I just don't do this for politics. I love poor people. And I have to love poor people because I come from your bowels. I love Black people, and I have to because I come from your bowels. I love Guyanese because it's the only place geographically that I can call home. I love all of Guyana. I love justice. And so I do this out of immense love. I'm coming here asking nobody for a vote. That is not what motivates me. And I say that to my political friends all the time. You all gotta love people. You all gotta feel it deep inside. And if you feel the pain of our people deep inside, your struggle becomes more meaningful. For me, politics is not never been about some leader and some position. Politics has always been about service. And I am more passionate about service when I see poor people, ordinary people, go through the kinds of things that we have been going through in Guyana. I'm backing down. When you tell me to speak softly, I shall speak loudly. I want to disturb my neighbor, as Bob Marley said. I want to disturb the PPP. I make no bones about it. I want to disturb the kind of dishonesty that passes for government. I want to disturb the kind of advantage taken on poor people, black people, brown people in this country. I want to disturb the Mr. Sue arrangement. No country should be governed like that. I want to disturb my neighbor. I want to disturb, and I want you to disturb your neighbor. I want you to disturb them. Because when you see injustice, you should not hug it up. You must disturb it. And by disturbing it, you pull the pieces apart so you can blow them away. Blow them. Blow them. I can, Robin W., the Surinamese poet, said, I can feel it in the sun. I can feel it in my bone. I can feel it. If you feel for the people, then the struggle means much more than winning an election and winning seats here and there. I've promised that I've got to get into the villages, and I'm going to be doing so in the coming weeks, as I usually do. I try to get around to 22 villages in the 2-3 months. Emancipation is coming. I want you all to start doing what you all are doing in your village. Prepare for emancipation. Turn this year's emancipation observances into a political act. A political, just don't put on our African clothes and make our conky and eat it. We must turn all of that into a statement. Not a hidden statement, but a statement that is plain for all to see. Injustice is illegal. Injustice is ungodly. Injustice is against what our ancestors fought for. And we've got to put an end to this phase of injustice as we are at the door of economic opportunities. Up comes this ungodly, illegal regime. And if it's ungodly and it's illegal, we have to use the might of God, the might of our bodies, the might of our wisdom, the might of our intellect, the boots on the ground, but not just be boots that march, not the government boots, as Gabi said. Those boots on the ground must signal. Martin Carter says, and whose boots slides down the tender grass? Is that man in 1953, the soldiers' boots who came to invade Guyana? They were boots on the ground, but boots on the ground for the wrong thing. Our boots on the ground must be boots for justice. We have dealt with this dictatorship thing for too long. It has to go. It has to go. And if the burden is on half of the population to free up the space for the other half, we have to take on that burden. We have to take on that burden. Someone has just died. Someone has just died. He or she will not see the promised land. Kingdom Bacchus will not see the promised land. But we have to get to that promised land as quickly as possible so that our grandparents, great-grandparents, and parents who have struggled to show us the way that they can enjoy some of the earthly milk and honey before they go up to heaven for the heavenly milk and honey. There can be milk and honey on earth for us Guyanese if we wipe poverty off the face of our land. We can enjoy some milk and honey before we go to heaven for that other kind of milk and honey. We can't have too many more Quindam Bacchuses. We can't have too many more Shannon Bullers. She's still there, but she's a broken woman, or at least they're trying to break her. And we have to prop her up. We have to prop her up. The Henry boys will not see that earthly milk and honey. Or in Boston will not see that milk and honey. And we have to prevent them from snatching our young boys, hunting them and shooting them like dogs. We have got to stop it. Nobody ain't gonna stop it, you know. The government ain't gonna stop it. We have got to stop it, and then the government will be forced not to do it. Enough is enough. Enough is enough. Enough. This is beyond politics. This is about trying to kill the spirit of a people. Our spirits have not been crushed. In 400 years, whatever, we came out of slavery, we came out of indentureship, our dignity, all in our heads high. Let no one take that dignity from us. Let no one take that dignity from us. We're going to win this thing. We're going to win this thing. We are going to win this thing. We are losing. That is why I don't get into the pessimistic talk. We are winning. Look at them how they come out in their numbers tonight on Roysdale, Ford, and David Hinds. We're winning. We are using our minds. And they can't take that. They can't take that. I want them to come and continue to follow me because I'm going to teach them something. But I'm so sending a warning to them that I am not talking about no nonsense to my people. I'm saying if you're beaten, you have a God-given right and a constitutional right. If you're unjustly beaten, to snatch the chain from the beater and turn it on him. Jesus Christ went in when they were gambling. What did he do? He didn't go there and smile with them and tell them, come out there and go look for crossover votes. He whipped the hell out of them. We're winning this thing. We got to win it for Guyana. We got to win it for Guyana. It's been too long, too long, too long, too long, too long. Thank you, Mr. Sue, for skinning up your friend. But I don't want Mr. Sue to fight for my freedom. Thank you, Vice News, for skinning up the government. But I don't want Vice News to fight for my freedom. I want to use what you have exposed to fight for my own freedom. Because when I and you and all of us win our freedom, we are going to guard it more because we want it for ourselves. If somebody gives you freedom, Walter Rodney taught us, they can come tomorrow and say, give me back that freedom. Give me back that freedom. But if you fight and you win your freedom for yourself, you hold on to it. Because it's you thing, you fight for it. So don't depend on no Americans, no Mr. Sue, no Vice News. We love them for what they're doing, but they're doing it in pursuit of their interest. We said, thank you. We are going to use what you have exposed to reinforce to our people and to the world that we are ruled by crooks. We are ruled by people who have no conscience. We are ruled by ungodly people. Let me go to the funeral on Sunday. You're from Georgetown, come. You're from Georgetown, come. You're from Linden, come. Wherever you are, make that sacrifice and come to Golden Grove on Sunday. Come to Golden Grove on Sunday. And next week, we're going to be talking. We're going to be talking to these little black boys. We're going to be talking to them. We're going to be talking to these big black boys in the uniforms of brutality, as Bob Marley said. That wonderful song. Why can't we roam this open land, he asked. Talking about my freedom and liberty, my people. Why can't we roam this open land called Guyana? On July 4th, we're going to be holding a demonstration in Buxton. And we invited all to begin to prepare for that demonstration. Why can't we roam the open space? Don't tell me a demonstration won't do nothing. We've got to roam the open space because we fought. We lost lives to be in the open space. When there was slavery, we could not walk outside of the plantation. We fought and died for this open space. Let's use the open space. We'll go to that funeral this weekend. And then on July 4th, we're coming to Buxton. We're coming to Buxton. And I'm insisting that we can get some liberated territories. We can get some of these villages, Golden Grove, and Buxton, and Victoria. We have to liberate those spaces. And so there must be spaces where we can go and ground without fearing any man or woman. We got to take back. We got to take back our spaces from those who seek to turn it into places where our young men and women are set up in sting operation, setting up our young men and women to go and thief gun to sell to you. What kind of government are you? That's what you think of young black men. The government is encouraging young black men to go and bring gun to them and them to murder them. I hear some of you all talking nonsense about young Clinton backers. The fact of the matter is that the government a young man who got accepted to a good job. A young man, you go in that village, everybody said he was a good young man. And the government is turning our young men, criminalizing them. And we sit back and say, but our young men mustn't this and they mustn't that. The government is criminalizing them. The government is criminalizing them. We've got to save our young men. That young man could have been only today. My son and I were driving around and I was talking to him about that. He's not a political guy. And I was talking to him. He's 37 years old. And I said, you do not allow yourself to fall into the trap of that nonsense the PPP is doing. And I said, I don't care, I'm your father, you're a big man, but you're a young black man. And if I can talk to the world, I'm talking to you. You don't give me trouble. I don't get them kind of trouble with you, but I still have to talk to him. I still have to talk to him. And I want you all to talk to your sons, talk to your nephews. God bless you all. May the ancestors keep us until we meet again. But let all of us put on our boots and head to Golden Grove on Sunday. Bury our dead. But burying our dead does not mean burying the manner in which he was murdered. Let 1,000 flowers bloom. Let 1,000,000 flowers bloom. Come out in your numbers. Good night, and I'm seeing you all in Golden Grove on Sunday.